Honestly, here's the truth. We're creating bourbon-based canned cocktails, okay? And we're in bourbon country. We're huge bourbon fans. We understand the ethos of the bourbon world. And if we're gonna be in a can, we better be fun and relaxed and free. And the 70s kind of retro vibe like represents all of that. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We worked, Mike can attest to this. I mean, Mike worked with a food scientist out of Denver, Colorado to learn how to translate a cocktail to a can. And we did that for a year and a half.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Decoding Cocktails podcast. I'm your host, Chris LeBeau. At the ripe age of 38, I left my former career behind and joined the hospitality industry. Since then, I've been on a rapid journey of learning, meeting all sorts of great people, and this podcast is my chance to bring you along with me, whether I'm interviewing somebody that works in the industry, another enthusiast, or occasionally stepping back to share what I'm working on or my thoughts. I'm so glad you're here, and so with that aside, let's get into today's episode. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of Decoding Cocktails. I am Chris LeBeau. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to get into a super fun and emerging topic. My guests are Janell and Mike Bass, and these are two lovely individuals who met during the pandemic. Janell had been living in Los Angeles and moved back home to her native Kentucky, and there she met Mike. And in addition to falling for each other, they fell into business together. And so here we are. We're here today to talk about their company, Ponyboy Slings. It is a collection of canned cocktails, and I was interested because on two different occasions at Tales of the Cocktail this year, I had some delicious ready-to-drink cocktails. And in part probably because of my own suspicion, but also being in a smaller market where we don't have access to everything always, much of what I've tried so far has only been okay. And I also will cop to the fact that I'm sure there are great brands out there that I just haven't gotten around to trying yet. But we met late one afternoon towards the end of the exhaustive Tales of the Cocktail, and our conversation just hit it off right away. We were having a great time, and so we hung out for several hours, and we said, hey, we should do this at some point in time. So you're going to get to hear a variety of things, like what's the difference in their mind between a seltzer and a canned cocktail. You're also going to get to hear about things like what you have to consider as opposed to making a single order cocktail. They came to this by way of making kegged or batched cocktails that were on draft, but what you need to think about when you're kegging or even canning a cocktail from a flavor and balance perspective. The term sling is one that you might be familiar with, but also it kind of blends into the name. And as they were quick to point out, sling is an old term for a style of cocktail, and so they wanted to bring that back along with the retro image that they have created for Ponyboy, which is super fun. And Mike even talks about during this that the term slingin' drinks comes from sling cocktails. An important perspective as well for me is the idea that, as Janell will talk about a little bit, that they didn't want to create diet cocktails, as is what many seltzers are. They wanted to create delicious, full-flavored drinks that are really designed to stand in as best for a traditional cocktail when possible. So I think there's something really to that, and we all have to have our own drinking and health journey, but I love kind of their approach to that. You'll also get to hear a little bit about the iterations and research required to make this happen, that in terms of finding the right balance and flavors that will stand up over time in a canned cocktail took them a long, long journey. They are two great people. You should definitely follow them and keep up with their journey. Right now, the product is only available in Kentucky, so if you're in the area, hopefully you will consider grabbing some. You can find Mike at barkeeping_it_real on Instagram. Janell, you will find at Janell, Janell. I believe it's Lenfert, Lenfert, Bass. And then keep up with the brand at Drink Ponyboy. You should check out some of their collateral. It is hilarious and, very engaging stuff. So enjoy this conversation with Janell and Mike. So Janell and Mike, I was thinking about this as we were getting ready for today. I remember sitting in the Napoleon House at the end of Tales of the Cocktail. My body was crying out for me to stop. And for some reason, I feel like it was Janell, I think you were looking at your phone or there was something, and I saw the term Ponyboy. And for some reason, I was like, well, that sounds like a cool name. We started talking. And before you know it, like we hung out for like whatever it was, like 2 or 3 hours afterwards. So it was a fun end to Tales when I just really needed to badly go home at that point.
We still had a few days left in us, I think, at that point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I feel like it was Friday night or whatever, but it was crazy. That was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. I was definitely struggling at the end, and Mike's like, "One more night." I'm like, "How do you do this?"
Yeah, and I had taken Thursday night off. So, you both have worked a little bit in the industry, but to kind of start at the top, COVID of all things, brought Janell back from LA to Kentucky, and thus a serendipitous meeting of said couple. But how does one begin to think, hey, maybe we should think about making a ready to drink cocktail like company? What is the arc to get to even starting to think about making Ponyboy in the first place?
Yeah. You want me to take this one?
Yeah. We've got this one down.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we didn't at first. I mean, that wasn't our initial intention. When we got together and we realized that we had similar backgrounds and skills in the bar and bar industry, we kind of just ran with it. We didn't really know what our niche would be or where we ended up or would end up. And so when we started Punch Bowl Project, it was because he was getting jobs, I was getting jobs, and we thought, well, we might as well do this together because one, it'd be a lot more fun, and two, it's just going to make things easier. So at first, we were doing cocktail consulting for, bourbon brands around Kentucky. We did RFPs for national restaurant accounts. We were doing events and visitor center cocktails and just kind of saying yes to whatever was coming our way. In the RTD space, canned cocktail space, that was presented to us. And so it was an event that we were creating cocktails for in Lexington. It was a charity event, and it went over really well. And at the time, he's an investor who invests in startup companies. He basically plucked a card off of our bar, and we had a meeting with him 2 weeks later. And he said, you got to stop consulting and you start putting your cocktails, in cans. And we kind of looked at each other. We're like, canned cocktails? Interesting. Okay. And we're like, challenge accepted. Let's do it. We had no idea like how to actually get into it at that point, but we were like, this is interesting. This is cool. I think this is going to be the niche for us. And it was.
Yeah. Cause we were on a roll with kegged cocktails for some of the distilleries. We were producing their cocktails at their visitor centers, as Janell said, that they were selling, to guests that were coming in. And so essentially we had a test market going, so we kind of knew what was moving and where the different SKUs that we have now, how those were going over with the community, what worked, what didn't. So we kind of just leaned right into that. And we're like, well, dang, we already have 2 or 3 that we know could work, so let's learn how to translate these into a can.
Right.
Which is totally different than into a keg.
Yes, we were doing traditional bourbon cocktails for people when they wanted it, old fashions, Manhattans, sours, things like that. But we were also doing something that was a little bit different, where we were doing these cocktails that were carbonated, and the bourbon was more on the back end, and we were using real, fruit from orchards in the area, and we were making syrups from herbs and stuff. So we were already throwing that in a keg, carbonating it, and putting it on tap, which is very much what would go in a can. So I think that, he is now our strategic partner and kind of could foresee this translating really well. And that's where the connect happened.
We had to appeal to the masses. So we're doing these large events, especially during the summer. It's like, okay, yes, we do have we would do the logistics on these events and have 3 bars going. So one of them, obviously, we would have like an old fashioned to really showcase the bourbon. And then, you have a lot of people out there that don't want to spirit forward. So we had to have a couple options for those.
So when it comes to like a draft cocktail versus a canned cocktail, you said you kind of had to learn the space a little bit. And, we don't need to get crazy technical, but like, knowing that a draft cocktail at times is going to, is batched large enough or is going to sit, for at least a little while. Are there basic principles that you would do different for batching something en masse like that versus something that maybe needs to sit on a shelf? I guess a draft cocktail you can probably reliably assume is going to be refrigerated. But are there ways that ingredient specs, begin to get altered at all? In whatever way you can think about answering that. Again, I don't know if people need to go super into the detail. I guess I'm just curious, like, how do I think about what might be in a can like this cream soda, as opposed to if you were going to put it on draft? Are there ways that the formulation would change in whatever ways you guys are comfortable talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we shy away from citrus. So what I learned basically was how to translate that or mimic citrus by using real, essence and natural flavors of, say, lemon or lime, and balancing that with the proper acids, to where we were kind of recreating lemon juice, which citric acid's being used a lot more often now in bars. So we kind of took that and we're like, okay, well, with a keg, you run into problems of everything layering. So like when you have a cocktail program with kegs, you want to shake them up every day and whatnot, and allow for that layering.
And keep them refrigerated because of the natural
Right, exactly. So yeah, we fixed that with acids.
Got it. Yeah. And so something we can link out to as well in the show, just in general, is like, there are conversation at times about drinks being acid adjusted, or when people are just synthesizing lemon or lime is kind of one of the big things right there. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't want to use go into creating a cocktail that was very citrusy, because then you're trying to recreate that, and it never is the same as fresh juice, and fresh juice just doesn't have a shelf life. So when we were choosing what to put in a can, because a typical cocktail would be a shaken cocktail would be, spirit, citrus, sugar, but to translate to a can, that citrus element had to change. And that's what Mike learned how to do, was balance all the acids and basically get that acidic feeling without it being a margarita, right? Like a margarita is so hard to make delicious unless it's super fresh. So we stayed away from that and found that berry concentrates work really well. So that's why we have cherry and a strawberry.
And I'll tell you, thank you for sending them over. Like, yeah, the berry, the cherry and the strawberry, like the essence really does come through in that way, in terms of, I can tell, like the bourbon pop star, is certainly, I think they're, I think the cream soda probably definitely has the most whiskey flavor, but yeah, like the strawberry for the bourbon pop star just feels like, oh yeah, like anybody could like crush this out. And I think the cherry is just a richer drink, I think. But both of those feel like you could hand them to to anyone right there. They could just
Yeah.
take them out right there.
Yeah, and they all pretty much have the equal bourbon in them.
Sure.
Reason the cream soda does is because we do use real vanilla and a little bit of butterscotch, which are undertones usually in some of the nuances of bourbon coming from the barrel. So I think that's where that familiarity comes from, because a lot of people are like, "Whoa, there's a lot of bourbon in this," but it's really about the same. They're all 7%.
Right. Yeah. And I saw that the proofing was the same. I guess I didn't know. Yeah, just the whiskey wasn't it didn't have as many flavors competing with it. But yeah, to your point, if you're adding things that remind us of the flavors of whiskey, that's certainly going to be a piece right there. So I feel like I know where this goes, but I'd love to hear, because I feel like I was in an event yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to die on the hill of people using more and knowing more about fortified wines. Talk to us about using vermouths and sherries in these. Like, what role are they playing? Talk to us about how this is really adding an important element, because I'm delighted that they're in there.
Yeah, I think Mike, you should definitely take this. But one thing I want to say is Mike ran a vermouth and sherry bar in Orlando and knows how to use them really, really well. And I always joke that that's our secret weapon.
And cooking also.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's always a bottle of sherry by the stove when I'm cooking. Yeah, I mean, I took what I knew from creating beverage programs at restaurant bars, and it's like, all right, if these are going to be original cocktails, then these are going to, be cocktails designed well and balanced out well. And I think that just adds an undertone to it that you don't get with just a straight bourbon and just juice and acid and sugar. So we kind of leaned into also the fact that the spritz category is kind of taking off. I believe like Aperol Spritz is about to go national here as it is in Europe. And so we're like, well, let's get ahead of that a little bit, because people are going to start knowing, more people are going to start learning about vermouths and sherries and amaros in their, everyday RTDs. So we kind of tapped into that as well.
Yeah. And how I think they affect the flavor and why we like to use them so much is, people kind of give us a little bit of a shocked look when they hear bourbon and dry vermouth. They're like, wait, what? Because they're so familiar with Manhattans. But we use a younger bourbon, so that with the dry vermouth on the cherry and the strawberry really makes it finish dry. So that front, you get any kind of sweetness you get is really from the fruit on the front end, and then the dryness kind of helps with the finish. And the sherry that we use in the cream soda just kind of rounds it out and gives it that nuttiness. And it still makes it it feels layered without feeling thick, if that makes any sense.
It's like how a wine connoisseur drinks a good wine is, you're always trying to figure out like what is that, what is, like, you're figuring out the layers. So by it finishing dry, it's like you get the bourbon on the back end, but you also kind of get that finish from the vermouth and sherry, and it ultimately just makes you want to take another sip.
Yeah.
And get to the bottom of it, literally.
Yeah, I think I completely see the dry vermouth, dry sherry angle, because yeah, you're getting the juiciness, the sweetness from the fruits, and so you need something to kind of add a little bit of subtle bitterness, but also kind of dry the drink out. I think that is one of the things I enjoy talking with people about with vermouths and the Italian bitters of the world, is like bitterness, because we just don't have still a ton of it in our cuisine. It's like, oh, bitterness is actually refreshing. And so yeah, how do you make the drink like where you want that next sip, as opposed to like this, a sugar bomb, like, again, like carries all sorts of connotations these days, but like adding that dryness, that bitterness really helps to make the drink more refreshing ultimately too.
Absolutely. And when I lived in LA, I worked at an Italian restaurant. It's called Osteria La Buca, and we were known for our amaros. We had tons of amaros. So we love using them too. And I think definitely, down the line, if we can, we'd probably love to incorporate that too. Because any bartender listening to this, they totally get it. It's like when you've worked in a bar, you've had everything so much that you start to seek out the obscure. So I think it's been kind of fun to play around with the modifiers and how we want to layer these. So
Yeah, baby steps.
I'm already thinking, what
Well,
we're doing next.
good. Yeah, because we're going to definitely talk about that. At the highest level, when we start to use terms like seltzer, ready to drink cocktail, are we really splitting hairs? So I want to first be very clear. I think that there is absolutely a difference of formulation and quality that kicks up a level between you guys and, like, dare I say, like a White Claw. But when we think about what that is versus what you guys are making, is the difference purely quality of ingredients and difference in formulation, or is there something that technically makes something a seltzer versus a ready to drink cocktail?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, seltzers are mostly, carbonated water. They're using flavors and a spirit or malt. White Claw is a malt-based seltzer. It's it's like a 3-ingredient seltzer. It's basically, LaCroix with alcohol.
They do have vodka.
Right, it's flavored. Yeah, now they have vodka, and then of course High Noon was really what put it on the map with the vodka soda. It just basically flavored vodka sodas in a way, or seltzers, but they have tequila seltzers. It's really just water spirit flavor, where for us, we're not malt, we are actual spirit, and we're bourbon, and we're multiple. We have the fortified wine in there too with the spirit. We've got real juice, we use real sugar. A lot of the seltzers are doing artificial sugars to get that calorie count down. And we're bartenders, so we decided not to make diet cocktails. We're just making cocktails. But because our palate is not very sweet, it's a happy accident. All our cans fall under 200 calories a can, which is cool. But yeah, I think it's just more ingredients for us when it comes to creating the cocktail, and just different ingredients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in many cases we've certainly seen, I think, the backlash against some of them as we kind of discover what was in some of the early arrivals. It's like, oh, we want all natural ingredients. But yeah, I like to tell people, say, I applaud you guys for this. It's like, how do I reduce the number of calories in a drink? It's like, well, it's simple. You just drink fewer drinks, but drink really good drinks. That said, when you're drinking Ponyboys, you should obviously, drop a 4-pack for sure. But in general, it's like, stop trying to like pull delicious stuff out of your drink, and just drink well, when you are.
That's a really good point. I mean, when we were deciding what we wanted to do as far as a canned cocktail goes, I mean, we had so many people tell us what they think we should do. And there were lots of talks about the low calories, no sugar, and all that stuff. And that was what you just said was one of our deciding factors. We're like, okay, we're all grown-ups. Everyone can decide how they want to drink. And that's not really on us. We're going to make the best tasting cocktail with the absolute best ingredients we can get our hands on. And the rest is up to you. That's not our job. So, eat a salad that day. No, I'm just kidding.
That's exactly that's running is good for my soul, but it's also like, hey, like, getting older, trying to live a good life, but it's like, hey, I do these things so I can do these things over here, right? So come on.
And we're still less than a margarita or even a glass of red wine. So
okay, it's always a good comparison. So you spoke about, it was nice that you had a test market kind of in the bag, having made some of these batched cocktails. How did Ponyboy as a brand, as an ethos, kind of begin to take shape around that? Like, how did you decide, like, we want this kind of like 70s, 80s vibe? How did you guys kind of begin to unfurl in front of you guys.
Yeah. You want me to take this? Okay, now I feel like I'm talking to it.
She's our spokesperson.
Well, it's funny because we have definitely like learned our strengths, and what things we talk about the best. Honestly, here's the truth. We're creating bourbon-based canned cocktails, okay? And we're in bourbon country. We're huge bourbon fans. We understand the ethos of the bourbon world. And if we're gonna be in a can, we better be fun and relaxed and free. And the 70s kind of retro vibe like represents all of that. We don't take ourselves too seriously. Mike can attest to this. I mean, Mike worked with a food scientist out of Denver, Colorado, to learn how to translate a cocktail to a can. And we did that for a year and a half. Like, we really worked our butts off to try to make this the absolute best ready to drink cocktail that we could make, right? But then when we got into market, the last thing we want is for anyone to feel like they don't know what it is or uneducated. Sometimes in the bar world, there's a lot of pretentiousness. And the last thing we wanted was that. We wanted you to feel like you're the bartender, you're having fun, you're the one hosting the party. And it's fun, free 70s chill. And that felt the most authentic to us and what we were creating.
And I am a product of the 70s, not to age myself in public.
Yeah.
If I don't, Janell will.
Yeah, that's true.
Mike, as a quick aside, and I imagine people could find this online if they looked. But if people were, maybe there's people out there that are interested in the movement in general, but if people just wanted to geek out, like, are there, you spoke of working with a food scientist for a year and a half on this. Are there general resources you could point people towards if they just wanted to understand better the science behind these ready to drink cocktails? Are there, without tipping our hands for formulations and whatever, I guess I'm just curious if there are resources you'd ever recommend that people could read up on to understand how this stuff is even working.
No. That's what we ran into. No, literally BevNet is kind of a good go-to. The podcasts like this, interviews, just basically digging in and research. But that's what we found. There is really as of now, there's no direct source to go to.
Got it.
And there are those that want to help, and there are those that want to hold the cards tight to their chest. So we did reach out to a lot of brand owners, and some of them wrote back, and some of them
did not
read it and didn't respond. So those are the ones we didn't reach back out to. But no, it was literally a year and a half of formulation, and the first 4 months of that was just digging in. I'm still looking.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So step one, find yourself a reliable food scientist, and step two, build relationship with food scientist. Okay. Got it. And especially when you're in a green space, that makes sense. And yeah, certainly it makes sense as well that certain things, especially if people have their own little sleights of hand that help them do their thing, they might want to keep that close to the vest. And yeah, that's life.
Yeah. And I want to touch on that too. It was like so hard to find any information out there. We really, there were moments where we're like, are we even going to be able to do this? And if someone did have an idea for an RTD, I 100% think you should go for it. Absolutely try to figure it out. Reach out to people like us. We're very open, to this. Like, we love to help. We're not someone who wouldn't, help the RTD space, because I think when one of us succeeds, we all succeed. We're a new category and we want to support each other. But I will say there are houses out there, like flavor houses, that you can go to and say, hey, I want to make, a mule. and they'll go, great, you can hire us to do it all for you, which is fine. And a lot of people use these flavor houses for that. But just because we're bartenders and we have such specific, I think, palates, and we really wanted a very a specific taste, we wanted to do it ourselves. Was it the harder route? Oh my gosh, yes. But at the end of the day, I do feel like we've made a cocktail in a can that we're getting great feedback on, so it's like, hopefully our hard work is paying off. But yeah,
there are some flavor houses out there that do have some resources on their site that are, a bit helpful to an extent, and then it always ends with, or you can just have us do it.
yeah,
But I mean, from what I found is a lot of them have a limit to the iterations that they do. So it's like, we'll get it, but you get 3 iterations, and after that you can either pay for more or just go with the third. But we literally, on some of ours, we did, up to 30.
Wow. Okay.
With that period of time.
Yeah, poor Mike would bring it in for me to taste, and I'd have notes almost every time.
One of the things you reached back into history on for this, because I feel like, as cocktail lexicons and spirit awareness rises, people's knowledge is, but sling is an old term. So just for people that would see that and think that they and kind of just see like, oh, Ponyboy slings, but not even just like, oh, that's the brand name. What is a sling, just for the sake of it, in terms of its historical reference?
Sling is a cocktail with sugar,
water,
bitters, spirit stretched with soda water. So we wanted to kind of be the first to bring that back. I mean, yes, you have your Singapore slings and gin slings, but they're not widely used. So, White Claw, or what is it? High Noon is sun sips. So it's like, okay, well, rather than be Ponyboy cocktails, let's come up with something, that kind of sets us apart from the rest, and could be the beginning of a new genre.
Yeah, I mean, spritzes, right? Collins, margaritas, like these are all types of drinks. Sling is a drink too, so we are like, no one ever uses slings. This is essentially what a sling is. So yeah, that's why we chose to.
We did go back and forth on it though.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. As I think brainstorming would, but I appreciate it because sling is one of those things that, if I'm reading a cocktail history book, there it is. But really nowhere outside of a random obscure reference at random cocktail bar do you ever see the term sling out there. And so, also again, fitting for a retro brand to bring something like that back right there.
From slinging drinks came from as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never drawn that before. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So of the 3 products so far, have any emerged? I feel like for me, like, and while I don't remember, to the retro angle of it, like when I saw like the cream soda, I don't necessarily even remember drinking a lot of cream soda. I remember my dad being a big fan of cream soda. So when I saw there was cream soda, I was like, whoa, that's cool. But in terms of what you feel like demand so far, is there a front runner? Hopefully they're all beloved. How are you finding the reception for the flavors thus far?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It keeps going back and forth. I mean, honestly, I feel like in the beginning, we launched in July, so it was hot at that point, and I feel like the cherry was really the front runner because of the tartness and the bright poppy. People were like really going for the cherry, followed by the cream soda and then the strawberry. And now that it's becoming fall, we're finding that people are really digging the strawberry a ton, and then cream soda. The cream soda just keeps staying in the middle, and then the cherry. So we're just like sitting back watching how people change. And it's funny because like my stepmom, she's not a big bourbon drinker and was just stoked with the cherry one because it's definitely blended in with the cherry. It's more mass than the other two, I feel like. But now her favorite's the strawberry. So it's like it bounces all around. My dad loves the cream soda though. Till the day he dies, he loves that cream soda.
That's true.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, I remember when we first started talking, yeah, it was like, yeah, our first runs are literally, have just come out. As you kind of look forward at this point in time, and none of us has a perfect crystal ball, is it more about how do we cover the 50 states? Is it, are you looking next to like product line expansion? How do you think about your goals for like growing the company, if at all? So where is this going in terms of more products versus greater reach, do you feel like at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are only in Kentucky. We want to saturate the market here and really get our feet wet, and then slowly branch out into surrounding areas. I mean, Indiana's right across the river. It makes sense. So we're literally 1 minute into Indiana. And then we are planning to launch in Nashville in the spring of 2024. Basically, places that she and I can get to in 2 hours while we're just a two-man band for now, and cover markets and not spread ourselves too thin. We have been getting advice from some brand owners that are like, just stay in Kentucky. Don't ever leave Kentucky. But yeah, we just want to slowly expand out and see where it goes.
Yeah. And, goals for sure. Would love to become national. I mean, that would be, the main big goal, but we're trying to be realistic and, not bite off more than we can chew and
build a brand community.
Yeah. We don't want to just get everywhere right away. We want this to be a repeat order, right? And that means we do tastings and we take care of our accounts, and we're just want to do our best right now and let it slowly kind of go to our neighboring states and so on and so forth. So
yeah, I think about as the canned cocktail seltzer market explodes, it is interesting how like I feel like suddenly just brands are just like there, here, and everywhere. And I'm just like, what is this thing all about? Like, I feel like at times, like for me, and this is a personal thing, it's like, oh, picking up something is kind of like not always. I enjoy a Bush beer as much as many people, but I feel like, yeah, that taking time to build out a brand ethos in terms of like what this, hopefully this can represent more than that. So I know you guys just had like a launch event. Tell people a little bit about like what you hope Ponyboy feels like to you guys, because like it's very clear when you look at brand imagery, and we'll link out to it, that like you guys are clearly cutting a line here. So what did that party all entail when you guys threw that?
yeah, I mean, I think overall the biggest thing for us is that we want to show people that bourbon doesn't always have to be so spirit forward. We want to show people that bourbon is an amazing spirit that usually only gets presented to you, or we don't want to show this. This is what is the actual, the thing that's happening right now is that bourbon is always just given to people either on the rocks, neat, or in a Manhattan old fashioned, something where they're highlighting bourbon, which is great. But bourbon as a spirit is so, there's so many flavors and taste to it that if blended properly, it can actually make a really awesome, cohesive kind of taste. So what we want to do is say, hey, you can use this the same way you use vodka, tequila, rum. It can be mixed and into like a really easy drinking cocktail. So we're putting it on the back end and kind of just trying to show people what you can do with it is our whole kind of feel with it, and giving it's time to shine. I mean, yeah. I'm from here originally, right? Mike's from Orlando. What we met here, we started our businesses here. We love bourbon. The bourbon community is super tight, and we they deserve to have their bubbly, fun, sessionable moment. And we're doing that. We're trying to bring that out, and not in a form of like a mixed drink where it's just a bourbon cola. We're doing something that you can't pull up to a bar, sit and say, can you make me a bourbon pop star? You can't, right? Unless you have the can. So we're trying to do original recipes and give people something they haven't had before. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea that, clearly plenty fun has been had with bourbon, but yeah, why can't it be more of like a fun, easygoing thing? On the other end, I think it's fun, and I guess the Oaxaca Old Fashioned has done this for a while, but I love the idea as agave booms. I love showing people it in more spirit forward, martini or other style representations where it's like, hey, here's a completely different look for agave over here, much like you're trying to offer people with bourbon, which I think is fun because it is something I enjoy that most people that are resistant to it, when it comes to that, yeah, they're like, they have been presented a straight pour on ice old fashioned Manhattan. I'm like, if I punch out this whiskey sour for you, I'm 89% sure you're going to be like, oh, turns out I like whiskey. It's more the format in which it is, and you guys are obviously just carrying that forward to another level is what you're doing.
Absolutely. That's exactly yes, you hit the nail on the head for sure. And
I always said that running bars, you always have the people that you go to make them a gin cocktail, like a hanky panky or something like that. And they're like, no, I hate gin. But it's like, you don't really hate gin. You would learn that they've only had it in a gin and tonic. So what they ultimately hate is tonic. So they associate gin with tonic and being, having that astringent bitterness when it's not. So
yeah.
Exactly. I like it. I have at least one other question in mind. But if there's anything you guys want to get to, let me know. Let's make sure we cover all the bases. So it's once you kind of have your formulation worked out at that point in time, after 30, back and forth, and you're like, come on already. It's time to like press go. I want this to appear like in this can. Like, what does that look like? Like names aside, like who does one work with? How do canned cocktails get pushed into production at the level you guys are pushing right there?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on who's making it, right?
Fair. Yeah. And so for something at your guys' level right there,
Yeah.
how do you find someone that's capable of producing that for you?
Yeah, so basically, clearly we don't have our own facility and canning line because we are, the ones who created the recipe. So what you have to do is basically find a co-packer that meets all the requirements. Yeah, so you have to have a co-packer. And then usually, depending on if they have a canning line or not, we use Ironheart, which is a mobile canning service. And so they work with tons and tons of co-packers and suppliers like us to be able to, get these cans created. And yeah, you just go from there. I mean, we would have loved to have it in our backyard, but because we're brand new brand, our MOQs were smaller, so we had to find a co-packer that could meet that need. And so ours is down in North Carolina. So we basically created it all here, ship it to them, they put it in the cans and then ship it back.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
What and when you're creating it, like what are the volumes at which I mean, obviously again, like, maybe small potatoes compared to other people, but like in what volumes do you create this before you ship it down there?
depends on what you have the funding for and what MOQs. And then my advice is don't go super heavy right off the bat because you're still in a testing stage on your first run.
Yep.
So you don't want to be stuck with a ton of inventory. And then, start mediocre and then scale out from there, whether you're doing, small runs in more intervals throughout the year or however many markets you're in. It all just depends.
Totally fair. No, that's to me, it's just trying to like even like a term like co-packer. I'm like, oh, I've heard that word before, but I would have, and I feel like it may even come up when we talk, but like just things just you see the can before you and you're like, oh, this is nice. But like understanding what does it take for like the juice to end up in here is always like a thing that to the outsider, you're like, how does this work exactly? So, okay.
Yeah, no, I know it's so much, honestly. I mean, we learned all of this as well. I mean, now we talk like we're experts because I mean, I wouldn't even say we are, but we just are now experienced in doing this. But at the time, yeah, it's all brand new stuff. And yeah, like Mike said, if there's any advice, it starts small. Just start as small as you can because you never know where you need to pivot. And especially if you're the one running it, you don't have a giant team, you want to make sure you can have a grasp on everything. But yeah, it's and not all co-packers are created equal. I mean,
Sure.
yeah, you kind of have to go on
Interview process.
interviewing and how you vibe with the people and if they have the same kind of ethos as you, really.
Yeah, go there, check the facility out, meet them.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a giant process. It's crazy. I laugh all the time going, I can't believe we're doing this. But at the end of the day, we always say, would we go back and do it again? And we would, for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And this could be just another stage in growth and maybe one you never cross, but so like, I can get wine shipped to me in the mail, vodka and whatever, I guess, or you can do through certain third-party services now, but something like this could be easier. Is, internet ordering something that is available you would ever pursue, or is it just a distraction right now in terms of like who outside of Kentucky is actually going to order them right now? How do you think about like, are online orders something that a lot of brands do in your guys' space? Do you know?
I feel like they do because we have tried, there's a lot of RTDs that we during our R&D phases that we tried that we did order through e-commerce. It is a whole nother beast. So it's something that we've thought about and considered, but not at the moment.
Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, like as somebody running a small business, I understand it's like the world is out there and it's like, okay, focus. So
Yeah, I mean, I would love it to be able to be offered like that. But, in the alcohol space, you got to remember every state acts as its own country. So to be able to do that, I mean, it really is tackling so many things. And we want to be able to offer that at some point. I don't think we're there in the journey yet, but we do want to be able to be available online. It's just like you said, it's a matter of who outside of Kentucky is going to be ordering it outside of friends and family, but once we get maybe known on that kind of national scale, that might be when we pivot to that.
totally fair. If I'm in the broader Louisville area and knowing that, or Kentucky, knowing that again, all retailers are not created equal, like are there, and like, is there a how to find the product? I mean, like, so where should I be looking if I'm in the market and I want to bring some back to St. Louis?
Yeah, so we're available, like you said, just in Kentucky right now. We're in different retailers. We're in Total Wine. We're in Evergreen. Cox's Evergreen. Here, local in Louisville, we're in a place called Top Hat and Breeze Wine Shop. And then we're in different
Party Source.
Yeah, we just got in Party Source, which is huge for us. We're very excited about that. Liquor King, just outside of Cincinnati. And then in Lexington, we're in the Total Wines as well. And we're in different liquor stores in Richmond, Liquor World of Richmond, and Paducah, One Stop Wine and Spirits. So different retailers like that. And then as far as bars go, we're in a bunch of different bars here in Louisville and Lexington.
Cool. Good for you guys.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure it, like me, you look at your footprint and it just feels like so tiny, but like at some point you can look at it and be like, I did that, like that's, yeah. So,
oh yeah, I have moments where I'll just cry. I'll just like look around at a bar and people are holding our cans and I'm like, I can't believe they're enjoying our Ponyboy. It's like a surreal feeling at times for sure.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for people that want to learn more and all that good stuff, where do they find the brand online?
Yeah, you can go to our website. It's drinkponyboy.com. Most of our stuff though is on Instagram, which is at drinkponyboy. I post I pretty much do our social for that and post the new bars that we get into, new stores. We have fun and stupid content that hopefully will make you laugh and all that good stuff.
So one, yeah, it is really certainly a time warp when you look at the content. And I remember when we talked in July, I think you had just bought the van, and yeah, and so like, yeah, if you guys want to truly step back in time, you gotta look up the Ponyboy van.
Pony wagon.
It is
Yeah.
that I'll tell you what, that van, despite being created with that vibe, if that was a real thing right there, that van would have some stories right there. So
It is a real
Well,
thing.
it is. Yeah.
It's a 77 Chevy G20. Then we are the third owners of it. And it's got now 70,000 original miles on it.
Yeah, but it was
It's a time capsule.
yeah, it was created by a man, his name's Jack Harris. He was the chief deputy in Columbus, Ohio. And he built it all out in 77 and then just never really drove it. It was garage kept for 45 years. I mean, it looks like it's never been used. It is wild.
So now we're getting into the details here, but so like I definitely know that style of van a little bit. So you're saying that even though you guys like renovated it, that it was kind of already built out in that way, or
He did not renovate it.
This is everything's original in it.
No way. I didn't realize.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. The only thing Mike and I did to it was throw a decal on it that says Ponyboy and put some Playboys in the back.
No, it's
No.
branded out. The guy we bought it from, Seth, he works on cars and has a nonprofit called Land and Speed Cathedral
Yeah.
in Columbus, and they help inner city kids work with their hands. He and his wife started it during COVID to kind of give kids an outlet that were cooped up during quarantine. So he purchased it from Jack before he passed away. He passed away in June. And he did everything that could go wrong with a van sitting in a garage for those many years. Yeah, like replace hoses and tires and exhaust and gas tank. So it's, other than that, it's all original. And he did the branding on it, and it looks amazing.
And this is what gets from being at the Peychaud's bar too many drinks in. But like in my mind, at least, the history was, and I'm sure you told me it accurately then, it was, oh, they're buying this van and transforming it. And my God, that's great. That's really
No, it's got it's original shag carpet, purple velour bucket seats, pop quilted leather ceiling and sides. It's got the original TV, little refrigerator cooler. I mean, it's insane. Yeah.
I've seen the pictures. It's insane. I just thought it was your insane project, but that's so great. That's so great.
No, and it even the paint's even all original. It's a Cordova brown. They don't even make anymore. So needless to say, we are terrified when we drive it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great on mine. Anything else that we haven't covered you guys wanted to talk about today at all?
Well, what'd you think about the drinks? What were your favorite?
Yeah. So yeah. So for me, I feel like from the retro standpoint, the throwback for me, I feel like the cream soda has the most allure for sure. Also anything that like already loving vermouth, anything that gives me the chance to trumpet sherry, to me is always like another level of like geekdom and satisfaction for me. So yeah, I think, in terms of it's the middle of a nice afternoon and someone just hands me a drink, I could see how, the Pop Star or the Cherry Amour would be one of those things that like you just roll with throughout the day. I think, the cream soda more like slightly more requires your attention because it is, I think, again, to Mike's point about the vanilla and the butterscotch and whatnot, I think it is seemingly more spirit forward, even though it's very drinkable. But I think it's like, that's one I want to more contemplate, as opposed to the other ones are just like, that's a backyard pool drink, like the other two for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so our bourbon lovers are digging the cream soda. Yay.
Janelle and Mike were kind enough to send me a handful of samples. And last night I had an event and was supposed to go to a gathering with friends afterwards, and I was just wiped. And so anyways, I told myself last night, I was like, I'm not going to be able to drink all of them, but I need to at least taste them. And so, but this morning, because this is what I do now, it's like, all right, well, we're just going to save the cream soda for the morning, and we'll just have a taste or two of it then. So there you go. Here's to drinking it 10:45 in the morning. So.
No, but I get that. But no, our bourbon drinkers, they really love the cream soda. A lot of people who will say, I don't like bourbon, they'll try our cherry and love it. And that goes along with what we're trying to do, is show people that it's just been presented to you in a way that maybe you don't like, but you actually may enjoy bourbon if it's made in this way. So the cherry really speaks to those people. And then the Pop Star is just like a neutral spritz. That's the one we go to for like pretty much every time.
Yep.
And
Nope. Agreed. I agree on that. The Pop Star is certainly the one that it's like, oh yeah, afternoon, easy, totally easy. Yeah.
Easy. Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
Thank you both very much. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having us, Chris. It's so good to see you again.
You too.
Our instant friend.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. An easy environment to make them in, but we certainly, I was like, oh yeah, these are people worth knowing right here. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey everybody. Thanks for listening. The show notes for today's episode are available at decodingcocktails.com/podcast. If you'd like to keep up with what we're working on, there are two great ways to do so. One, our short weekly newsletter, Cocktail Confidential, which you can sign up for at decodingcocktails.com/newsletter, or give us a follow on Instagram at Decoding Cocktails. If you think this podcast is great stuff, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, or of course, share an episode with a friend. The Decoding Cocktails podcast is produced by Chris Bay and myself. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon, and happy cocktailing.